and a zest for life, such that being around her was pure joy. I used to revel in sending her funny texts in the hope that I might get a smart, hilarious reply back, and I often did. She loved big, and she loved hard. She was incredibly kind to everyone. Her loss tore a hole in the fabric of our entire family. April 10th, 2017 was an ordinary day. I was shopping for shoes with my son Clint when Tracy called and told us Molly was dead. That call and her voice, the way she sounded, her words, haunt both of us still. Hearing her say, "Molly's dead." That night, not knowing how or why she died was torturous. Clint and I were both awake all night as we attempted to sleep on the couch with a movie on for distraction. Learning Molly had been murdered the next day set me on an immediate flight to Texas. Arriving there and seeing the devastation you wrought on my family, the depth of their loss was horrific to witness. The days ahead were dark. I had a front seat to their pain, our loss. You see, Tracy is my person. We have always been close, but this brought about a whole new level of closeness. The biggest loss was Molly, of course, but your actions reverberated through the family. You stole our sense of safety. How could any of us trust that our children would be safe again after you so callously discarded Molly as if she meant nothing? You stole from my children. They lost their cousin they adored and their belief in how the world should work. You stole a precious granddaughter from her grandparents. "Hit me up when you get up," was the text you sent her after leaving her dead. How dare you? Your words were a taunt as you made sure she was never getting up again. You also knocked her family down, but little did you know we did get up. We got up in her honor. Day by day, we grew closer and closer. We watched and prayed and clung to each other, and strength began to bloom. There was even joy again, and with that joy, amidst the sorrow, there was unbelievable strength, God-given, almighty, divinely granted strength. My father, Molly's grandfather, has a lot of choice words for you about what the punishment should be. You are getting life. That is certainly more than you deserve, and way more than you gave Molly and Megan. Your spineless and evil acts could have destroyed all of us, each person here in this courtroom as well, but you did not win. We refuse to let that happen. We don't even call you by name. Molly's legacy will live forever, though, not just in our hearts, but in every survivor of sexual assault that we empower, every rapist who has stopped because of Project Beloved's reach and impact.
David Matheson.
David Matheson, Molly's dad. I'd like to start by thanking Alana Bangs, Paige Simpson, Pauline Fitzgerald for their incredible work the past 5 years. It's been an incredible pleasure getting to know you despite the very difficult circumstances. You've been incredibly diligent, and I know you represented Molly in the very best way possible. I'd also like to thank everybody in the Fort Worth Police Department who played a role in bringing justice for Molly, especially Detective Sullivan and Detective Anderson. It's an honor to know y'all. Appreciate y'all. This morning, we had a chance to listen to some incredible stories and learn about what happened. Truly, it's the worst thing that can happen to someone. I want y'all to know that you're the heroes in this story. Each of you did what you were supposed to do and fought hard to bring him to justice. The system failed you, and many families suffered because of it. You were not believed, you were dismissed, and you were abandoned by the very system that's supposed to help you. I hurt for each of you because I know you did everything you could to put this person behind bars. We also know that the young ladies in this court today represent a fraction of those that you raped and assaulted over the past 10 years, probably longer. I do understand why women fear reporting to a system that does not protect them. This has to change. Multiple women came forward over years before this case, and the system protected and allowed a serial rapist and murderer to exist. So why would anyone report knowing they're not going to be believed? When you understand the details of these cases, it's unimaginable that the investigators and the prosecutors in Plano, Allen, South Padre turned their backs on you despite overwhelming evidence. It was only after 2 innocent young ladies were raped and murdered that these departments indicted the defendant for his crimes. Molly and Megan would certainly be here today if any of these folks did their job. They didn't. Here we are. This is not an indictment of the police, far from it. We are huge supporters of law enforcement, and we've met some incredible people over the past 5 years that have dedicated their lives to getting guys like this off the street. However, there are unfortunately some in this case whose dereliction of duty, good old boy attitude that the victim wanted it, or simply not caring directly led to the rapes and murders of 2 young ladies. I'm so incredibly proud of these ladies sitting in court today and those that are not here. You're some of the bravest and strongest people I know. I hope you walk out of this courtroom today knowing that you won. I hope you walk out of this courtroom today stronger than when you walked in. I hope you walk out of this courtroom knowing that you did make a difference, and we do believe you, and your efforts to bring this guy to justice will have a lasting impact on how the system looks at sexual assault. Now to the defendant. I honestly have nothing to say to you. You don't exist. You don't occupy any space in my head, and you never will. You're the definition of a coward. You are the biggest coward I've ever seen. My wife, my family, Megan's family, and all these girls are tougher and stronger than you'll ever be. Every one of these girls is going to go on to do incredible things with their lives. You're not. After the hearing today, they're going to take you off to wherever they take you, and no one's going to hear from you again. And again, as you heard earlier, you're getting off easy. In closing, I'd like to say a couple of things about my family. What we've been through the past 5 years is hard to comprehend. And I don't know anyone who can manage through something like this with more elegance and poise than my wife, my son Nick and his wife Elizabeth, and my sons Max and Ben. They've all shown what true courage is, and I don't have the words to tell you how proud I am of you. What Tracy has done with Project Beloved is nothing short of phenomenal. Tracy's already made a huge impact on giving victims of sexual violence a stronger voice, and she's only getting started. As I mentioned, she's a whole lot tougher than you are. Every person in my family is tougher than you are, and Molly most certainly was tougher than you'll ever be. Romans 12:21 reads, Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with joy. Molly was full of joy. She is the definition of joy. She exuded joy. She was the brightest light in the room. She is the opposite of evil. She's not physically here today, but I know she's been with us this entire time. We know where she is, and that brings us incredible joy. We miss her dearly, but her story is not over. Not at all. This is just the beginning. I want to once again thank this court, our incredible prosecutors, our investigator, our detectives, and everyone in Fort Worth law enforcement who brought this to the proper conclusion. Thank you.
Here from Tracy Matheson.
So that there is no confusion, I want to be perfectly clear. Our decision to accept your guilty plea, allowing you to avoid the death penalty, has absolutely nothing to do with mercy. You have done nothing to deserve that. Instead, it has everything to do with silencing your voice. No longer will you be able to sit behind the lie of innocence. There will be no doubt as to who raped and killed Molly and Megan and strangled and raped all the others. It was you. We know it, and now the rest of the world knows it. 1,807 days ago, you made choices. You decided to drug Molly. You decided to rape her. You decided to beat her. You decided to strangle her. And once she was dead, you decided to leave her body on the floor of the shower, alone, for me, her mother, to find. At every single step, with every decision you made, you constantly showed yourself to be a cowardly, selfish, lying, cruel, deceitful, misleading, wicked, evil, malicious, brutal, uncaring, self-centered, conniving, scheming, diabolical, spineless, dehumanized, weak person. Those cowardly decisions have rocked our world every moment of every day since April 10th, 2017. At times, the excruciating, devastating pain that resulted has been almost too much to bear. The images of Molly's body in that shower haunt me still, and are ones I would not wish on my worst enemy, maybe not even you. Molly was a big sister and a little sister who loved her brothers fiercely. She was kind and always believed in the good of people, even those who did not deserve it. Molly was a granddaughter and a cousin, and one day hoped to become an aunt. She was a friend everyone wanted, loyal and dependable, and really, really funny. Molly was a cherished and beloved daughter. She was my right hand. The transparent truth is that you and your cowardice are not solely to blame for Molly's murder. You had many accomplices along the way who are responsible and complicit in growing you from a serial sexual predator into a serial murderous rapist. These accomplices are a little harder to identify because they have the privilege of hiding behind the shield of their job and power. I don't know when you became the coward who preys upon women, raping and strangling at will. I am guessing it was well before 2012, when the Plano Police Department had an early opportunity to save Molly's life. You got lucky that the detective in that case decided you were credible and she was not. He is an ally to predators like you. That detective was given numerous chances to right his wrongs over the years. Despite CODIS hits, the subsequent rapes that you committed, and your dependable use of strangulation to torture the women you raped, none of that seemed to matter to him. He had been handed a serial, sexually sadistic rapist whose use of strangulation should have identified that you were a true and significant threat to society and who should be treated as such. Instead, he did nothing. In 2014, as your pattern of raping and strangling continued, another young woman gave law enforcement an opportunity to stop you. Although you left her for dead, she survived your brutal attack. This time it was the Allen Police Department who was charged with investigating this violent assault. After enduring your violence, she sacrificed herself even more by submitting herself to a rape kit and putting her trust into a system that I suppose she thought was there to protect her. Once again, you deceived the detective who decided you were credible when you said you had nothing to do with the attack. 3 years later, when the DNA found in the victim's rape kit revealed it belonged to you, one might think that would trigger the detective to take immediate action. Instead, for 41 days, the detective from the Allen Police Department sat on this critical piece of evidence which connected you to the brutal attack that you had promised you had nothing to do with 3 years ago. But your guilty plea to that violent rape cements the truth that had he paid attention, had he done something, anything, at any point during those 41 days, Molly and Megan just might be alive today. Instead, he did nothing. If the Plano Police Department or the Allen Police Department had done their jobs properly, rather than doubting, blaming, shaming, slow playing, and flat out not recognizing you for the cowardly serial rapist you are, Molly would be about to turn 28 and working as a social worker. But for her death, you would still be collecting victims and destroying the lives of their families and friends. I imagine she might be helping to support the same victims that cowardly monsters like you prey upon. But you killed the wrong mama's kid. And her death will protect other women from you and other monsters like you. The missed opportunities to stop you goes beyond the police. Even in a case that was skillfully investigated by detectives in 2014, the Cameron County District Attorney's Office failed to accept and prosecute yet another sexual assault where you strangled a woman. The evidence was solid, and it included DNA and a CODIS hit to the 2012 Plano case. Another silver platter of evidence. Instead, they did nothing. Instead of doing their jobs, law enforcement from agencies across the state failed these women. They negligently disregarded the safety of women in their own communities and left you to walk the parks and streets, attend parties, and enter homes to rape and strangle at will. Most certainly, this outright dereliction of duty empowered and emboldened you, and your pattern escalated to murder. Their actions were lazy, dangerously irresponsible, and as it turns out, deadly. As we move further and further away from April 10th, 2017, I am beginning to see the start of a revolution, a movement. I will spend the rest of my days making sure that this battle is won. The conversation about sexual assault will change, and victims will be empowered to find their voices. No longer will victims of sexual assault sit in silence because they fear that if they speak their truth, they will be blamed and shamed and further traumatized. Those who commit sexual violence and strangulation will be recognized as evil cowards, and they will be held to justice promptly. If not by the current system, then by a path of justice that I've started to build while you sat in jail for over almost 5 years. CODIS hits will be recognized as significant investigative leads and responded to in a timely manner. Law enforcement will look through the lens of trauma and its impact on survivors, and they will do their jobs with that understanding, knowing it is the only way to help bring justice. Instead of blaming victims for lack of cooperation, they will shift to practices which encourage victim safety, well-being, and engagement. They will meet the victim where they are at. And if they cannot adjust their lens, they need to find a different vocation. Rather than only talking to girls about how to not get raped, we're going to start talking to boys about not raping women. Concern for a victim's well-being is going to surpass the concern over a rapist's once bright future. Bystanders will step in and stop predators from committing sexual assault because it is the right thing to do. Prosecutors are going to start taking cases, investing their time and knowledge to win, because juries will understand what consent is and what it is not. Rapists are going to be held accountable and sent to prison. Cowards like you will not be left to continue raping and strangling. There was a time that thoughts of you and your cowardly decision threatened to consume me. I began to realize that if that happened, I was letting you win, and that is not an option. You may have murdered and raped my daughter, Molly. You will not have any power or influence over me. The light, Molly's brilliant, joy-filled, bright light, will shine over the darkness brought by your cowardly decision. The good and change that the system will come because of your cowardly decisions will far outweigh the darkness it brought, because darkness cannot overcome the light. That is not only a scientific fact, it is also one of God's truths. John 1:5 says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." The light is a direct outpouring of all of God's goodness, and also Molly's. Her light is the fuel for the revolution. Her light is what keeps us all going and working and striving to do better. Her light is what inspires me to be brave. Her light is making a difference and will be remembered always. Your cowardly existence will soon be forgotten, and your darkness will be extinguished once and for all. She will always outshine you.
Thank you all. We're adjourned.
Maybe go through it.